This is the video review for Transformers Masterpiece Grimlock. And this figure is pretty cool, although it does have a fair number of problems. And the problems that didn't need to be in the figure there. He has problems because he has a lot of gimmicks in him, because for some reason Takara thought that just having Grimlock be a good transforming toy wasn't enough, since he was basically going to use just a slightly modified version of his G1 transformation. I would have been fine with just a modified version of his G1 transformation and then a figure that had no gimmicks. Maybe one or two small gimmicks, but this figure just has so many gimmicks, and a lot of them don't even work. Or they do work, and they don't work well. Well, let's get into them. First gimmick is you're supposed to be able to press him down on his hips here. You see how the legs aren't moving compared to the body? I have no idea what this is supposed to do, and I've never seen a video that shows what it's supposed to do. I think it's supposed to, like, make his head look up or something. So I guess I do have an idea. That's what I think it's supposed to do, just by looking at what opening him up, like opening this up and seeing what moves when you do this. And when you do this, it's like some sort of plastic bit presses up against the head, but it doesn't do anything. I don't know what it's supposed to do, and it doesn't really hurt anything, but it's annoying. Next gimmick is, it's kind of cool in concept, but it really damages the figure. When you do this, the head will go back and forth, but you see what's doing to the head there? Yeah, and that's only one of the things that it does. See, because of that gimmick, now that you can't pose the head, you have to just move this if you want to move the head into any kind of stable position, which really there isn't kind of a stable position. The only way you can move the head to a position where you want to keep it is to, you hear that click? That's stripping a gear when you're doing that. That's the only way you can get him to look in a specific direction, and it's still going to be floppy, and I just hate this gimmick. It's cool in concept, but it's awful for the figure. And then here, this gimmick here isn't so bad. You open the mouth, and then you press his cheek, and it closes. Although I don't know quite why it's in there, because it's easy enough just to close it by hand. And actually, yeah, those are about all the gimmicks in Beast mode. There are a couple more gimmicks in Robot mode. One of them I don't have the batteries for. It's a light-up gimmick for his weapon. And honestly, his weapons are packed away, and I have no idea where they are in the attic somewhere, so I won't show those off. But for Grimlock himself, let's get into the... Well, before we get into the transformation, the articulation. Well, I showed you how the head kind of has posability, and then it is neat how the tail has posability here. Then you get posability back here, and then these are on ball joints, and then a hinge, and then each finger is individually jointed. Then the legs go in, out, forward, back, bend at the knee, and then the toes can bend. This is a ball joint in there. And overall, I do like the Beast mode. I think it looks good, and it doesn't have too much posability, but it doesn't really need it. I mean, it's not like you could get one-legged poses with this thing, but he's a nice, intimidating T-Rex. Now, transform him is almost exactly identical to his G1 self, just with a couple extra twists and turns to get rid of these tail bits on his leg. So to begin, we will split open... Ooh, I'm going to need to rotate this up. We're going to split open his chest, which is easier said than done. Split this open, and fold these back. Then fold this back, and it will plug into the back there. Then you can take Grimlock's chest and rotate it up. And then what we need to do now is we need to split the tail. And he gets sort of really floppy, because you see this movement here? This movement is a result of the tail gimmick, and this makes transforming him really floppy, and it makes his robot mode really floppy. That gimmick just hurts his figure so much. Anyway, you split the tail, and then you bring the hip up like this, and then you will fold this in, and this in. There's a little tab here and a slot there, so clip that in, and then rotate this up, and rotate the leg around, and take this and rotate it in, and he's getting a little bit floppy, but this is basically the leg, and I do like that leg transformation. I like how it uses all of the space available to... hide the tail bit here, so it just doesn't just stick onto the leg like other versions of Grimlock. Because on like even anime Grimlock, the tail just sits to the side on his leg and it looks kind of ugly. Now we have the legs done. What we need to do is we need to telescope this into the body. Now you'll know you do it right if you pay attention to the chest, if an Autobot symbol pops up, although it's kind of dark in there. That's how you know you've done it right. And then, let's see, rotate the arms down, pull out the fists, and here we have Masterpiece Grimlock in robot mode. And this is a nice robot mode. I like the way this guy looks. And the robot mode is, it's not as solid as the beast mode, because beast mode, the tail could move and it was obvious and intentional, but here, the body here just wiggles a lot and it's really annoying. But otherwise, it is a really nice figure with a nice posability and nice balance. Pretty big too, although I'm messing up with his leg. But anyway, as far as articulation goes, head can look up, down, left, right, and has a lot of range to it. I really like the head. The arms can rotate around 360 if you get his wings out of the way. They can go in and out a little bit, rotate above the elbow, and then about 90 degrees at the elbow. And then on this hand, you can move the thumb on the hand, and then the hands can rotate. On this hand, you can move his fingers here. For his legs go forward, back, in, out, rotate above the knee, and bend about this far at the knee, and then if you move this little chrome tail bit out of the way, you can move it further. And then he does have some foot articulation, but it ends up being kind of useless, because you see how you can move his toe up and down. What would be useful is if it could tilt inward like this, or if it could tilt up, and it can't do either of those. It can tilt outward and down. I suppose it can go a little bit up, but it's also tilting outwards, which is a useless motion. So I don't really know why they did this, because if they hadn't done this weird slider joint thing here, then they could have put a lot more articulation into that. And anyway, this is Masterpiece Grimlock. He is a fairly simple figure on his own. I kind of get why Takara felt they may have needed to put gimmicks in, but I think that if they hadn't put a bunch of gimmicks into him, he would have just been a stellar figure on his own without any problems, because while there isn't much to him if you don't count the gimmicks, there doesn't need to be much to him. He is a simple... He should be a simple figure with a badass beast mode and a badass robot mode. And as far as gimmicks in this mode, you can change his eye color from blue to red. And then if I had one of his swords, you could press this button on the back of his arm, then a light would shine through the sword. And one gimmick I forgot in beast mode is if you see his head, you can pull this up. And then you see there are other eyes in it. And you can rotate this piece around. Oops, rotate it the wrong way. Rotate the piece around and give him blue eyes. So sorry, I forgot to mention that. And that's just about it for Grimlock. I do quite like him, but I think that he could have been so much better if they hadn't put all these extra gimmicks into him. So do I recommend him? I do. I do recommend him, especially because there's a US release. This is the Takara release. There's a US release of it, which went for about $50, $60, $70, somewhere around there. And for that price, he's definitely worth it. This is the Takara version. I paid about around $150 for him. I don't think he's worth quite that much, but if you can get him for less than $100, I would definitely pick him up. He is a nice figure, despite the flaws with the wiggly chest here. So yeah, I review Transformers, Power Rangers, Brave figures, Macross figures, just a ton of stuff. If any of that sounds interesting, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.